All right, guys, we're going to review multiplication just a little bit. Not necessarily because I think you don't know how to do it. I think you do. But as we've talked about before, we want to make sure that we are solving things and understanding things at a level where we actually grasp why we do things and not just because we're following a procedure. So I want you to do this in your notebook along with me. So we're going to start with a pretty simple problem. We're going to look at 393 times 3. Okay, so going back to what we talked about in class, I want to remind you that 393 times 3 actually really means that we are taking 393 and we are adding it up 3 different times, truly. That's what this actually means. So if we were to take 393 and add it up 3 different times, we would move in our addition problem by place value. When we start to find the sum, we would first look at our ones, and we would add up 3 plus 3 plus 3, which is 9. And then we would look at our tens, and we would add up 9 plus 9 plus 9, which is 27. We would regroup our 200s here. And then we would look at our hundreds, and we would see there's 9 hundreds here, plus the 200s that were regrouped are 11 hundreds. And so I feel pretty confident that 393 times 3 is 1,179. And so the algorithm that you have learned, or we've used that word before, but the procedure that you've learned when you were in 3rd grade was to look at 393. When you multiply it, you'll remember that your teachers told you, okay, guys, first we're going to multiply the ones. We're going to do 3 times 3, which is 9, and start there. Well, that makes sense because if you remember looking up here, when we added, we started with the ones because you have to start with the ones so that you have space to regroup as you make things bigger. If this number was bigger than 9, I would need to regroup into the tens. So of course, when I multiply, I need to do the same thing, just like we talked about in class. The next thing I would do is multiply my tens. So I need 3 groups of 9 tens, which again was shown here when we proved what we were doing. This is 3 groups of 9 tens, which are 27 tens, or 270, which is why we have our 7 here, and we regroup 2 hundreds. And then we have our hundreds here, and there are 3 groups of 3, just like we would multiply down here. 3 times 3 is 9, because there's 3 groups of 300s, which are 900s, but then, of course, don't forget, we regroup those 200s, which would be 1100s, giving us 1,179. And this is exactly the way that we talked about in class, and this is what makes sense. It's why when we multiply, we do the procedure that we do. So that being said, I want you to try this problem for me in your notebook. Press pause and then listen in to see how you did. And I do encourage you, for this first one, I really want you to show me on the side that you know you're really doing this. And I want you to compare what you get when you add up 573 4 times and when you use your procedure that you did from 3rd grade to multiply. Press pause and go ahead. All right, so if you did this, you would have found that 3 times 4 is 12. That makes sense because 4 groups of 3 is 12. 7 times 4 is 28, plus 1 more is 29. That makes sense because here we have 28, plus the 1 more is 29. And then we have 5 times 4, which is 20, plus our 2 more up here would be 22. That makes sense because all of these groups here make 20, plus the 2 more up there would give me 22. Both of them match, and it all makes sense. All right, I want you to try it again. I want you to try it with this problem, 962 times 4. Press pause, go ahead. All right, if you did this correctly, you would have shown me over here that you added up 962 4 times. Oops, always making boo-boos here and there. All right, 4 times 2 is 8. That makes sense because these all make 8. 6 times 4 is 24. Here I see the 4 6s in the tens place. That's 24. Tens, regroup 2 of my hundreds. 9 times 4 is 36. 2 more is 38. Here they all are, plus the 2 more. Perfect. 3,848. Makes sense. All right, now that I feel confident that you're getting the hang of that, we are going to practice actual and estimate like we did in class yesterday. We learned today a little bit about how to estimate when we multiply. And so I want you to please find the actual answer to this problem and the estimated, and then show me a check mark if it works out. So let's do this one together. If I find the actual product of this problem, 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 7 times 5 is 35, plus 1 more is 36. And so I think that my product is 3,605. If I were estimating, 721 on a number line would be closest to 700. And I need to group that thing up 5 different times. And so since I know that 7 times 5 is 35, then certainly 700s times 5 would be 3,500s. And so this is pretty close. I find it reasonable. And I think that that was a great answer. All right, try this last one on your own. And you will press pause and then check in with me to see if we agree. I want you to multiply 487 times 3. Go ahead. All right, let's see. 7 times 3 is 21. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 2 more is 26. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 more is 14. Let's see if I'm right. 487 on a number line is closest to 500. 3 groups would be 1,500. They look pretty reasonable to me. If you're feeling good, please move to a practice station, and great job.